Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for Ohio, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome to a Thanksgiving edition of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. If it's not the internet, it's me that's screwing up tonight. And oh boy, I am sleep deprived, I am overworked, and trying to get shit done before I go on vacation next week. So my brain is a little frazzled, but thank God it's a long weekend. Here's hoping the Packers have their shit together better than I do tonight or my internet. But Joe, Packers picked up a key win this past Sunday against the Niners, and they roll into a Thanksgiving evening game against the Dolphins, where hopefully, like I said, the Packers have all their marbles in a sack and they just bring their A game tomorrow or tonight when you're listening to this. But Joe, are you more collected and calm and cool than I am tonight?
Who the hell knows? I guess it's just another normal night for us, so it is what it is. But it definitely is an interesting matchup between Packers and Dolphins for the Thanksgiving game. You figured they would have, even if it wasn't like the Lions or something like that, have it in NFC. I mean, this would have been a good one for the 49ers game. So it's a weird matchup. I was trying to do some research earlier about the Dolphins history, the Packers Dolphins history, and I think it dates back to like 1971 is the very first that they played. Overall, the record is Miami's leading 10-6, but the Packers have won the last 3 matchups. So, like I said, it's an interesting one to have for Thanksgiving, but what are you gonna do?
Yep, you just play the games that are on the schedule for you, and this is definitely one of those the short week, unfamiliar opponent. Honestly, just glad it's a home game for the Packers. It would be really rough if you're coming off of. I know the Niners aren't as good as they've been, and pretty they're pretty physical. My wife is giving me smoke signals about something. They're happy ones though. She's not trying to murder me off camera. At least not this time. Not Jonathan Frakes, not this time. But yeah, I do think it's really beneficial for the Packers that this game is at home. You're at the point of the season where the teams from the South, Miami's practicing. I think they are saying they're practicing in weather that's 50 degrees warmer than it's going to be at kickoff tomorrow or tonight.
Did you hear what McDaniel said when he was asked the question, how are they going to handle the weather? And he said something like, well, I'll just carry ice cubes around in my pocket and throw them at the players once in a while.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike.
Sandwiched right after the who's the best looking coach of the bunch. So it was an eventful press conference for McDaniel. But yeah, short week. Neither team really has an advantage. They're kind of equally banged up going into this one. So one of the beauties of the short week is that we have the injury report as we record. Jair, Edge Cooper, and Romeo Dobbs, no real surprises, are out for the Packers. Questionable. Short list for questionable: Isaiah McDuffie, Josh Myers, and John Fitzpatrick, I guess, rocked out too hard on his 2-yard reception last week and dinged up his back. But looks like they'll have most of their roster. We expected they wouldn't have Dobbs. Jai would have been really tight, and Edge is not really a surprise either. You don't expect rookies to play when they haven't practiced all week. And then on the Dolphins side of it, they're going to be without Kendall Fuller. I believe he's one of their starting corners. And then Tyus Bowser, who's a rotational linebacker for them. And then the big one is Teron Armstead is questionable after being a DNP all 3 days. Granted, it was like projected on Monday, walkthrough on Tuesday, and I'm not sure how the Dolphins handled today. But you know, both teams are kind of banged up. The Dolphins actually had the longer injury list than the Packers did, given all the names that are just listed as dealing with stuff. But you know, I half jokingly, half seriously say that all these games are must wins for Green Bay because the Lions and Vikings have just turned off losing in the season simulation process. So gotta you'll know what the Lions did, but I'm not even sure who the hell the Vikings played. I'm pretty sure it's someone bad. So you just gotta get these wins. And honestly, on the short week, this is one of those I don't care how, just don't get injured and just whatever it takes, just win the freaking game. Because yeah, I don't care if it's ugly. I guess only my heart rate will care if it's ugly, but otherwise, just get the W and just move ahead to next week.
Looks like they play the Cardinals.
Yeah, so they should be expected to win that one.
Did you also see on the Dolphins injury report? I don't know if it's on the one that you're seeing or if it's just mine, but it for Jalen Ramsey, it has it listed as knees
Knees.
plural.
Yeah, I tweeted that. I was like, that's a rare one. It's usually one or the other. But Jalen Ramsey is checking off all the boxes and just going for yes, no, middle, left, right, center. But yeah, he's got both. So uh,
Yeah, they've got a lot of interesting ones. I mean, let be truthful, I don't know a lot about the Dolphins roster just because it's not a like I said earlier, it's not a common opponent. But just looking at their injuries, it's like a lot of mix of stuff. Like Robert Jones has a knee and groin, Javon Holland hand and knee, Isaiah Wynn quad and knee, Tyreek is under wrist personal, and then Bowser is under kneecap. So I mean, there's like multiple things wrong with some of these guys. So it'll be interesting to see how that matches up. Again, I don't know if a lot of those are key players for 'em. Obviously, like Tyreek and Jalen Ramsey, and possibly even Holland. I think Holland's one of their better ones. You know,
yeah,
those it'll be interesting to see how they play out. Like you said with Romeo, it wasn't a surprise. Jair's an enigma right now because who knows how bad it is, how what's going on with it. We do know it's a PCL, but I think he said it was a tear, but nobody else has really said it was a tear, just an injury.
yeah, and even that, it's kind of like sprains are all technically tears, and the way that Lafleur was like very much I thought Lafleur was extra positive when he was kind of stating like we're not putting him on IR. So I do think it actually, it's kind of like the Love one where it is like legitimately week to week, almost bordering on day to day kind of thing, and they're just sort of seeing how he feels as he goes through like the rehab and conditioning portions and stuff like that. So yeah, because they could maybe should have put him on IR like a week or two ago. So the fact that they haven't, I think, bodes well. But obviously, they're not going to have him for tonight. And it's big because I know Tyreek has been kind of banged up, and Waddle he's kind of worked himself back into where he's been the past few years, but. Their two top receivers have dealt with or are dealing with injuries, and they're still dangerous, and we don't have Jair. So expect Halfley to play a lot of softer coverage, but also get a little aggressive up
And
front if Teron Armstead is at all limited, or if he is like Trent Williams and isn't able to give it a go tomorrow after they go through warmups.
well, it's not just this is not the team to play soft coverage on because even though Tyreek and Waddle may be injured or dealing with some kind of injury, they've still got their speed to them, and speed is going to kill soft coverage. I, this is I would, and this is just me, and I'm not a coach. I know I'm not a coach. I whatever, but in my mind, I'd want to put Stokes back out there and put Stokes on at least Waddle. Maybe not on Tyreek because Tyreek's a little bit more of the shifty guy, but put him on Waddle. because at least Stokes still has his speed and he'll be able to keep up with that speed. Carrington is decent speed, but I don't think he's got quite Tyreek's speed. So he should be able to manage a little bit with that. But you're also going to have to rely on your safeties a lot more. Make sure they're double covering or helping out with the coverage. But like I said, this is not the team to be doing soft coverage on with the targets that they have. And you definitely need the pass rush to step up this week.
Yeah, especially because their O line situation is unsettled. And yeah, when I say soft coverage, like, I mean, just make sure your safeties are back. Not, yeah, don't play like so loose and willy nilly on like the corners, but just make sure that, it's the very basics of deep safety coverage, deeper than the deepest, all that kind of stuff. Because
Right.
in the blink of an eye, this,
But
go for it.
like we've said the last couple weeks is whenever Jair is out, Halfley seems to like panic and move into that soft coverage zone like a Barry did. And you can't do that this game.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a weird one because, yeah, like, Tu- it's because Tua's not the biggest guy and he doesn't have the biggest arm. So, like, you you want him to have to throw into that 12 to 18-yard range because he does have a decent deep ball, but it can kind of, and that's where like the elements can help you too. If it's cold, and I think Luke Sampe's latest forecast I saw is it's supposed to be like 35 to 37 at kickoff, and then it's going to drop to light flurries by the third quarter or so. So, you know, gotta gotta get up on early, and then by the time they have to make a comeback, it's cold and it's snowing, and Tua's not seeing well and not able to drive the ball down the field to Waddle and Hill. So yeah, make him have to fit the ball into tight windows, but you also got to play a combination, like you said, combination and bracket coverages because we don't have a corner who can really stick with either of these guys if they decide to turn the Jets on. So a lot of fundamentals, a lot of coverage keys, and I know they're, what are they, 4-6 or 7 or whatever, or 5-6, but yeah, 5-6. But a lot of the Dolphins' issues were because their offense just, unlike the other Shanahan, Shanahan's done it. LaFleur has obviously done it this year with Malik Willis, but for whatever reason, McDaniel can't get his offense to work if Tua's not in the game. It just totally goes down the shitter when he doesn't have Tua in. That's been the case the last 3 years. And, after he got concussed earlier this season, Dolphins couldn't do jack squat. They couldn't move the ball. They couldn't score consistently. So and a lot of their stats, they're kind of crooked still because of how bad they were on offense in those non-Tua games. I think they've scored 23 or more in 4 of their last 5, or however many games Tua's been back. They've scored 23 or more in each of those. So this is another game where Green Bay is going to need to score 30 some. It'd be nice for them to reset their season high in points. They just set it with 38 against the Niners. It'd be great to see them have a 40 burger because I do think your best defense is going to be your offense in this game. So, just Tua hasn't been great taking care of the ball. And the more you can, force him to throw into the elements, the more chances you have to, take some away from him. So it's on Love and the Packers and Jacobs and the Packers offense to get the ball rolling, literally and figuratively.
Just looking at team rankings right now. So points scored per game, the Packers are 8th, the Dolphins are 24th. Points allowed per game, the Dolphins are 11th and the Packers are 10th. So I mean, it's a pretty close matchup for points allowed. So that defense is going to be tough to go against.
Yeah.
Like you said, the offense is a little bit different, but then again, it's a little bit more skewed because they had the opposite effect of what the Packers had. They put in their backups and they just couldn't get it going. Packers put in Willis and he was able to do what he did. But the big thing right here that I see is the takeaway difference. Miami has a -1 differential with and they're 20th, and the Packers have a +8 and they're 6th. So that's going to be the key right there, forcing the turnovers, making the smart plays. And when you do force a turnover, if it's a fumble, make sure you're getting it, not just you knocked it loose and then, you couldn't complete the takeaway on it. Because this defense is going to be tough. They're 8th in passing yards allowed and 9th in rushing yards allowed. So, it's going to be interesting to see what the Packers can do both through the air and on the ground. This is one of those games you wish Devontae was still on the team, because it would be great to see him and Jalen Ramsey go against each other for another game. But yeah, it's going to be something else. Not having Romeo is going to hurt a little bit for the offensive side, but the Packers are in a good situation just because they are deep at the wide receiver mark. So some of those guys are going to have to step up a little bit more. Whether
Yeah.
it's Watson has another 150-yard game, Wick stops with the drop issues, Heath steps up a little bit more, whatever it is, or it's a Tucker Craft game. Get Tucker more involved.
Yeah, it could be because their linebacking core is kind of shitty, and they've moved some guys around. They've, Chop Robinson is learning how to play standing up full time as opposed to being a down defensive end at Penn State. So you can still take advantage of him. They cycled through like 2 or 3 starters at their other linebacker position. So definitely a place where you want Green Bay to be able to take advantage of that. So yeah, Kraft having a nice game would be pretty solid. And like we said, Fuller is out, so he's their other cornerback across from Ramsey. Holland is dealing with, like you said, a double injury. He's dealing with a hand and a knee. So, his mobility might be a little compromised. And Ramsey's dealing with both knees. So, whether, he'll probably be covering Watson a bunch. So you'd like to see Watson be able to blow by him once or twice. And even if he ends up on Reed or something, you know, make him have to change directions and stay with you in coverage. So we'll see how that goes for the Packers. But like you said, I think it's good that Wicks had the big catch last week. He's been pretty quiet, but right after Dobbs gets hurt, Wicks has that big gain over the middle of the field. And then Heath, comes, not a big game for either of them, but it was good to see them, involved in the passing game and take advantage of their opportunities. So hoping that they can continue to build on that, because they're going to need it this week. Because like you said, they probably could get away with just Watson, Reed, and Tucker, but it would be nice to have Heath, even Melton, kind of in the mix and just offering extra targets. But also, this is one of those games where, and it's hard to say how much they're going to lean on Jacobs after he's coming off 26 carries last week. But, Wilson didn't have too many. Brooks didn't have too many. Spread the ball around a little bit in the backfield, too. And, you can still get 35 or more carries between the 3 running backs. And hell, if the conditions get fucked up enough, put Willis in the game and let, really test Miami's discipline that way. So, like you said, this is an unfamiliar opponent. And these are the kinds of games that coaches like LaFleur live for. Like, this is sort of a wet dream for these kind of guys, because it's like unfamiliar. I know that they're friends, but in that sense, like, let's see if I can one up you kind of thing. And LaFleur is one up on McDaniel from a couple years ago. So I'm sure he'd like to hold another one over Mike and just throw the kitchen sink at him. Because like I said, there's no style points for this week. Like, you're playing on the short week. You got a little banged up on Sunday, and this is just, don't hold the trump card. Throw the trump cards early and just try to score as early as you can, and build up some momentum to just carry you across the finish line in this one. So yeah. And the other side of it is, there's a handful of guys on defense who had bounce back games, including 2 of the ones that we've been, championing for a lot this season. And Lucas and Quay are coming off their best games of the season, and it would be really great for the 2 of them to carry it forward. Quay's going to have his hands full because this isn't a power Miami run team, but this is a, if you miss this tackle, we're gaining 20 kind of run game. So, main thing with Quay is I just don't want to see him go back to paralysis by analysis. Just if he if he misses because he's going 100 miles an hour and he just guessed wrong or whatever, I can live with that because at least you have the you're willing to live with the conviction of your action and you're not second guessing yourself. So I can live with him making 100 or 110-mile-per-hour mistakes. I just don't want to see him like not make a play because he's like got his feet set in concrete and doesn't know which way to go kind of thing. So that side of it. And then for Lucas, just build off of the game last week. It's sort of like where we were with Tucker last year, where it's like, okay, he's finally got some good film that he can like lean on and say like, ha, like there's a good thing. I know I can do a good thing, but let's see if I can do another good thing or another couple good things in this next game. So really good potential building block for both of them, and I hope that they're able to springboard off of those games moving forward.
And it's definitely going to be a testament for Quay because, as we talked about with the injury report, Isaiah McDuffie's on it, and Edrin Cooper's going to be out. So if and McDuffie is questionable, and he didn't practice for the first two, which I know Monday is just a estimation of what could possibly. They didn't actually practice, but he was also limited today or Wednesday or whatever you want to call this, and so it that means that there's gonna. And the other thing is Jamin Davis was signed.
This is your before and after story, where your first steps towards a new life-changing career begin. Southeastern College can take you there. We offer in-demand hybrid and online programs with hands-on training, led by in-field career professionals, and career services to put you on the path to a rewarding and fulfilling future. This is where your transformation begins. Southeastern College, your future is bright. Visit sec.edu to get started.
By the Vikings off the practice squad, so they're down a lot of inside linebackers right now, or I guess linebackers at the moment. So you're hoping that McDuffie can go, but he's going to be kind of limited if he does go because of injury. Then you've got Quay, and then you got Tyron Hopper, who came into the game a little bit last week and did all right, but you're really not sure what he's got. And then that's kind of it, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, so you really do wonder if this is a game where, and like on the Jamin Davis part, it's like they know what their linebacker situation is, and the fact that they didn't like offer something to try to sweeten the deal to keep him in town, or bring him up to the Packers active roster because they still have an empty spot because of how they've kind of they were keeping the seat open for Marshawn Lloyd, and then his appendix decided to explode, so they still are at 52 on the active roster right now. So it kind of makes you curious what their plan is. Like, yeah, like, because okay, like you said, McDuffie is such an unknown, and even if he's active, it's probably as like a break class in case of emergency kind of thing. So if you're the way it is right now, if you're in base, that means that Hopper's starting. But I do expect him to play a lot of nickel just because of the speed that Miami tries to put on the field. So whether you're probably starting with Quay and Eric Wilson on the field, but then maybe mix in Hopper a little bit. That's kind of what they were doing at the end of last game. The McDuffie injury kind of was the catalyst for that, but they were bringing him in on sub package downs and stuff to kind of get his feet wet, and hopefully that continues. But maybe in nickel, you're just going to have a lot of. This is where it's really important that Evan Williams is healthy this week because he can play safety, and it's really good that Williams isn't even on the injury report. And so he can play deep safety with McKinney, and then you can have Bullard in the box all the time. Or maybe this is Kitan Oladapo's first active game of the season, just to have another, box safety body that you can put in sub packages. I don't, it's hard to say. He hasn't really been active, so you can't really know what they've been, what role he's been playing. But it's all, like I said, it's all hands on deck. And um, I kind of do think that Halfley, as much as I've been talking about how much LaFleur kind of like flourishes in this kind of scenario, I think the same kind of goes for Halfley, where it's like, okay, there's 10 weeks worth of my shit on film now, and you can pull from my college film and stuff like that. But especially because of the linebacker injuries, especially because of the unfamiliar opponent, I do wonder if he kind of just says like, let's get weird. Like let's just throw some funky ass packages out there. And like I said, especially because Miami's gonna run a lot of three receiver sets. Janu Smith is their, he's a pretty good tight end, but he's not a big tight end. He's only 6'3". So like it's a little easier to match him up on some of your like hybrid safe, like a Kitano Ladapo if he can hack it out there. Or even for Bullard, it's not Kittle or bigger that Bullard's gonna have to cover. It's more of a sort of like big running back or fullback sized guy that he's covering. So there's options there for Halfley. And like I said, I don't think this is a play it straight across week. I think that he's going to get a little funky with his coverages and his schemes and stuff, because you don't see this team you see this team every 3 years. Maybe if you end up with the same record thing, that's the reason we're playing the Dolphins this year, is that whole like same record gets you this opponent kind of thing from the cross conference and all that kind of crap. So yeah, like just let it rip. Like that's the moral of the story this week for the Packers.
Well, you're going to have to, with the injuries that the Packers are dealing with on the defensive side of the ball. You're going to have to get kind of cutesy and cover up some of that stuff. So yeah, for sure, you know, call a little bit more rushes, maybe do form into a little bit more of a 3-4 style front, not necessarily run a 3-4, but or do like a 5 down lineman set type of situation. Just whatever, because you're going to have to get pressure no matter what to help out in the secondary, because we have the faith in them for the most part. We know there are going to be issues with it, but you have a faith in them for the most part. But Tua can move around with his legs a little bit. He's not like super fast, but he's mobile enough. I heard somebody talking the other day that he was like scary on his feet, and it's like, no, he's not really scary on his feet. He's mobile enough that you worry about him, because he can get there with his feet, but it's not like the major focus of his game. And it just, you got to do something with it. I was kind of looking at the Packers practice squad, and they have nobody to fill in
Yeah.
for linebacker. So they're going to have to do something. There's nobody that they can call up from the linebacker position.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because they've carried one or two every year so far. And it was weird that they cut Edge Cooper's old college teammate and stuff. Like yeah, they've got this weird imbalance. They have four wide receivers on the practice squad, and
Well, and they brought that Alex Magoo back.
yeah, that one
This
was just
29-year-old guy that has never played wide receiver. He's always been a quarterback, but you're going to bring him back instead of, I know what one you're talking about. I just can't think of his name either. But and then you let Jamin Davis go, which I guess that means they didn't have a lot of hope for him. He didn't really impress, I'm assuming.
yeah.
Otherwise, they most likely would have made a better offer to him. And I'm trying to think, do you know how the practice squad works? It's just the other team offers a contract and he can accept it or not accept it.
Yeah, basically, because they're technically free agents, and so the what's it called, the yeah. So like any of the guys, you can walk up to like Cornelius Johnson and be like, hey, if you're the Seahawks, you can walk up to Cornelius Johnson or Messiah Swinson. This happened earlier in the year, and the Panthers were like, "We need a tight end, Messiah Swinson. We're gonna sign you." and they cut him like a week later kind of thing and stuff. But that's how it goes. But in turn, that player can turn around and be like, hey, so and so called, they want to say, what can we do, will you, and the Packers have done it both ways. They've either signed that guy to the active roster, or they just been like, here's 5,000 extra dollars or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I know they only got paid they get paid weekly each week that they're on the practice squad. So I knew
Yeah.
that much, but I wasn't sure about the whole signing portion of it where it was they could just say, all right, we're going to pick this guy off this practice squad. I wasn't sure if they gave him a choice or not. I thought they did, but I wasn't 100 on it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's the situation, and it might be a situation where, like you said, Catan has to be activated, and maybe they even have to bring up like a Kalen King or a Kamal Hayden for that secondary for help.
Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, and you just cross your fingers that the short week doesn't lead to any further injuries, because yeah, they're weirdly thin at a few key positions, and it's one of those fly by the seat of your pants weeks. But like I said, just win up front in this game. The Packers O line has really turned a corner, so you'd like to see them take it to this Dolphins front, who has been decent, pressuring the quarterback and stuff like that, but they haven't been, they've been okay. They're middle of the pack in terms of yards per rush allowed, at like 4.3. So you'd like to see Jacobs and Wilson take advantage of that. And on defense, same thing. Like there's their their big name guy, Teron Armstead, is kind of, like I said, he's in a similar position to what Trent Williams was this past week for the 49ers. So, like I said, if he's at all compromised, or if he goes through warmups and he can't go to on Thanksgiving night, got to be able to control the line of scrimmage on defense, and it all starts up front. That's where, like I said, these short week games, you can throw a lot of the overall statistics out. It's just going to be who wins up front best, who takes care of the ball most. So Jordan, let's keep this new streak going. Let's turn this one game into a multi-game streak of taking care of the football. And the people in green, please catch the fucking ball. Like, Jordan's putting it on you, catch it, or at least open your rib cage up so it can just get stuck in there. Um, Especially because, like I said, the conditions might be a little funky. So just don't tip balls in the air where the Dolphins can get easy interceptions or anything like that. Just play good, smart football, and you are the better team. I know the Dolphins are playing well, but the Packers are the better team, even with the injuries the Packers are dealing with. They're still the better. You're better on both lines of scrimmage. The matchup with your secondary against their receivers is not great, but your run defense against their run offense is manageable. Your run offense should smush their run defense if you're committed to it. And your passing game should be able to pick apart this secondary. So win the line of scrimmage, win the game. I don't care what the score is. This is the definition of a survive and advance game for the Packers.
Pretty much. The only other thing that I'll point out is, and I know I'm going to say this and it's going to completely jinx the whole fucking game, but Xavier McKinney himself has many interceptions as the Dolphins as a whole. So this is definitely not the game for Jordan to get cutesy and
Yep.
try to force things where it doesn't need, because again, I go back, the turnover differential is completely skewed towards the Packers and being able to have more success in that area because they don't deal with the Dolphins aren't good at takeaways at the moment.
Yep. And honestly, this is one of those where it's like, I wouldn't mind if they ran the ball 45 times and only threw it like 15 to 20. Like, I have a pretty strong feeling that this game, especially if the snow comes in faster than they're projecting it to, this is one of those games
I
where,
was looking
yeah, like I said, the
whether
forecast right now is like light flurries at the end of the game. But if that picks up at all over the course of the next 24 hours, or 20 hours really at this point, it'd be really good to have the run game going. I know Morley was joking on today's Pack a Day, like water the field tonight, a Lambeau ground crew. But it is one of those, like, turn it into a bar fight, and you are the. I think you're the tougher team. You've shown it the last few weeks, so hang in there and just, like I said, it's not stealing a win, but just make sure you come out of this game with the win. So you got over unders for this week?
Typical? No, not really, but I'll come up with some. I mean, the obvious one right now is it looks like the Josh Jacobs over under. We'll set it at 70.5 yards.
I'm gonna say under because I think they're gonna try it because it's the short week and because Detroit is next week. I think they're gonna try and limit his carries a little bit tomorrow. So I think that you're gonna see a little more even distribution between him and Wilson and Brooks.
I'm going to say over, and just because you know how I rail on this on our show that I hate press conferences and I think they need to do away with them. One of the beat writers asked LaFleur, I think it was today, you know, do you plan on splitting up the carries? And of course, LaFleur gives the flippant coach speak, well, I guess you're just going to have to tune in and see for yourselves. And so that, in a way, that kind of says, no, he's not really planning on it. He's going to feed Josh Jacobs as much as Josh Jacobs wants to be fed. And so I'm going to take the over, but I do think that they are going to try pushing a little bit more to Wilson and Brooks, just because what I see on the weather, it says wind gusts of 15 to 25 mile per hour. So that's going to make for some shitty ass throwing weather. So they're going to have to lean on the rushing a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to go over a little bit on that one. This one seemed to work somehow, so we're going to go back to it. Over under Packers defense, half an interception.
Let's go over, baby. I'm honestly, I don't like everyone from here has like supreme cheer for the island boy thing, but I get so irritated by it. And so yeah, like not only because the Packers are playing them, but and not only did Tua go to one of my rival high schools, so fuck him. Let's pick his ass off a couple times tomorrow.
See, I'm kind of the same way. Well, obviously not with the Island Boy stuff, but obviously with the college stuff, when the Packers play a team that has a few different Iowa guys, it's like, yeah, I love you guys and all that, but I don't want you to do very good against us. So, you can do good any other time, just not this time. So I'm going to, I think I'll take the over on it, just because, again, the the whole win thing tells me that again, it's going to be kind of crappy passing weather. So I think it's going to overshoot. He's going to end up overshooting one of his receivers, or it's going to die in the wind, and it's going to end up like a wounded duck or whatever. So I think I'm going to go over on it. This one I'm going to change up just a little bit, just because I'm kind of interested in where we're going to sit with it. Let me pull up my stat here real quick. So over under, we'll set it at 65.5 rushing yards for Devin Achane.
I think it's gonna be over because I do think he's gonna bust at least 120-yard run.
I'm going to say under, because they held Christian McCaffrey to even less this past game. So I'm hoping maybe they figured out a little bit something with the run game and they won't get gashed as bad as they have in the past. Now, I could see them giving up 100 and some odd yards as a total between Achane and Mostert and Jalen Wright and every other, whatever ones they run, or even Tua adding some to it. But I could see them doing that, but I think it'll be even out through all of them. So I'm going to go under a little bit on him.
All right.
And that's all I got for that. But I do have, it's not a STFU for this week, but it is a WTF for this week.
Okay.
And so we're going to try and kind of change it up a little bit on that. It's still same concept. And I know a lot of people are kind of talking about it right now. Oh, come on, give me my bookmarks. But I guess, you know how a lot of these teams will go to one of the bars for that team in the city that they're going to and have a pep rally of sorts and stuff like that where they celebrate with the or not celebrate, but they pregame with that team. So with this past week, it was the 49ers. They found a 49ers bar in Green Bay or in that area, and they had a pep rally, and they did, you know, giveaways and basic pep rally stuff. Well, according to the news and everything that I've been reading, a young Packer fan went with like his cousin or his uncle or something like that to this pep rally because the uncle or one of the relatives was a 49ers fan, but the kid was a Packers fan. Well, they did a drawing, and the Packer fan, this 14-year-old kid, won a Christian McCaffrey signed football. But why this is a WTF moment is because they didn't give him the football. They kind of there's a clip and everything on that, and maybe I'll put it in the show notes or whatever. But they were kind of giving him a hard time about being a Packer fan or whatever, and the host or whatever, you can kind of hear him say, "Well, I'll get you something after." But they wanted the Christian McCaffrey ball to go to a 49er fan. Well, it's like, yeah, but he won it. You know, that'd be like a 49er fan going to the Packers pep rally and winning a Jordan Love signed football, and they're like, "No, you don't get this. We're going to give it out." No, they won it. So, of course, this causes an uproar and everything, and you know, people are calling this shit out with good right because of it's set up through the bar, but the team sets it up through the bar. So it was team representatives that were doing this. So after all the flack, it ended up a team official sent an email saying the team had shipped out a signed helmet. The helmet is signed by safety Talanahu Huafonga. So he won a Christian McCaffrey signed football. They didn't give him the football, but they said, "We're going to settle this by just giving you a signed helmet by this Huafonga."
That's a real dickhead move because Hafunga, he's the one he blocked the punt that got returned for a touchdown in that 2021 playoff game. So that's a super dick ass move.
This is where the whole what the fuck. It would be different if it was like a 45-year-old man and the guy just said, "You know, I know I'm a Packer fan. Give it to somebody else." But it's a 14-year-old. Come on now. I know 14-year-olds can be dicks, but it just he was there with family. He was supporting his team. He ended up winning it. Just give him the damn ball.
Yeah,
Don't
there's no
do the whole.
he didn't sign some NDA or whatever you know, like there's no fine print at this drawing kind of thing. It's like so yeah, that's a definite what the fuck. I do have a light shut the fuck up for this week though, actually.
Okay, now
Also,
just to finish this out real quick.
go for it.
I did see a little bit that the Packers have been sending this kid stuff. So it looked like he got like a signed Jordan Love jersey, and I guess there's other stuff. So I don't know the completes of it, but it does look like he has been getting stuff from the Packers. So to me, that makes up for everything. But still, what the fuck, 49ers or any visiting team, it doesn't matter what team the person supports. If they win something, they fucking win something. So I'm ready for this because Mike usually doesn't do STFUs, so I'm ready for this.
All right. So this one is Kyle Shanahan was still bitching about a call from the game on Sunday. After the game, he was still hot about the too many men on the field penalty. So if you all remember, Green Bay gets into the red zone. Love catches the Niners with too many guys on the field, or they're running a guy on late and stuff. And then he breaks the huddle and tries to get up to the line, but the Packers aren't set because obviously Love is trying to snap the ball before that defensive lineman gets off the field. And so the play gets stopped, and there's offsetting penalties, and so they're like, okay, retry the down. And then as the Packers line up for their next play, the play is stopped again because the Niners still have 12 on the field, to which Brady and Kevin Burkhardt were incredulously laughing because they're like, that shouldn't happen. You literally just got called for that, and you somehow still have 12 guys on the field. Well, Shanahan explained that he was hot at the referee because it was a strategic play by them, but one that I don't feel should be allowed. They didn't give us time to sub on that. That's why I was upset. The next one, because they got away with it the first time, they tried to do that again on the next play. That's why I went out there arguing. So, and then he goes on to say, this time they did allow us to sub. I was out there screaming the whole time, so I'm not exactly aware of what happened with our 12 guys, but obviously we had 12 guys out there. They gave us time to sub, and we didn't get one off. So the second one is on us. Okay, so thank you, Lombardi for having the whole quote posted, because I'm not watching a Kyle Shanahan fucking overrated ass son of an overrated ass father coach. But so the first one, okay, where I have an issue with Shanahan's saying that they didn't have time to substitute. The Packers are in the huddle, and when you're in the huddle, you as an offense cannot have 12 guys in the huddle. You cannot break the huddle with more than 11 players. That's an automatic penalty, and that's where you would see Rodgers do it, where he would he would obviously be calling the play, and then he would look up and he'd be like, there's too many people, so he would step back from the huddle and kind of do one of these like, who's supposed to be, whoever the coach, he's like, who are we supposed to have, and then he would send whoever is like the hell off the field and stuff. So back to what Shanahan, he's saying that we were trying to be deceitful and all that kind of stuff. Like, Love is in the huddle, so we obviously have 11. And if he's at the point where he's like looking up and seeing the Niners have been given the chance to substitute, and in the ref's point of view, they're like, they can't sub anymore because the Packers can't sub anymore because they're in the huddle, and they have to break the huddle with 11 guys. So that's the first flaw in his plan. Second of all, if you're waiting, you do not get forever to sub. The ref gives a quote unquote an allowable amount of time for the defense to react to an offense's substitution. Defenses have tried to screw the offenses back by like waiting to sub to match the offensive sub, but it's usually more in a no huddle situation, not in a huddle up, and then the ref's not going to let you screw around like that. So that's two. And then his whole point gets stupid because the Packers got caught, like the Packers kind of, they kind of like got screwed by having to hurry up out of the huddle because, like I said, the whole and the Packers were correctly called for not being set at the line because they're trying to get set and snap the ball before the Niners can get the 12th guy off. Jaden and Watson aren't set before the ball is snapped. So, okay, like already, like I said, that's three ways where Shanahan's just complaining about nothing. And then for him to go into it on the second play where he's like, they got away with it the first time, so they were going to do it again. It's like, bruh, you lined up with 12 guys. And like, so you can make whatever excuses, but you got 12 guys on the field who can't see that there are 11 people, not including themselves. You've got a dozen defensive coaches who are all looking at this, and not one of them is like, we're in nickel, I got too many DBs, or I got too many linebackers, or whatever it is. So you've got like six coaches in the press, in the coaches box who are looking at this thing with binoculars. And there's definitely one guy whose sole job is like yelling in Shanahan's ear, call timeout. Like we have too many guys on the field, like call timeout kind of thing. And that's the thing, and that's the last point why it's so stupid that he's having a little bitch fest about this. Because for you to get called for 12 men in formation, the ref gives you, they give your guy an amount of time to be like, your defense that's on the field to be like, oh shit, Kyle, what are you doing out here? Like, someone get off the field. Kind of. The fact that all 12 of those guys, like I said, looked and were like, it's the worst are the two safeties in the back, because it's like you can see there's 10 guys in front of you and there's one more guy next to you, and it's like at no point did either of those two guys in the back go like, oh my god. Like, the fact that you sat there, and then adding onto it, the Packers didn't even notice they had 12 guys. Like, there was no one on the Packers that was like pointing or jumping or anything like that. The Packers were like, they almost, like, you see Love when the whistle gets blown, Love, Myers, and I think Elton, I forget who the second lineman is, but the three of them are like, what are you calling us for now? Like, I think Jordan was gonna say like, we weren't set, so we can't be called for false starting and stuff like that. and then it's like, no, it's those guys. They have 12 kind of thing. So Kyle Shanahan, your team is a flying flaming turd. Your boys don't look like they have the fire in the belly anymore this year. They look kind of disheveled, and the Super Bowl hangover has hit them all hard. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I get it. It seems like 2 weeks in a row where you've got coaches that are complaining about something that it was their own fault that it happened, but yet it's somehow the Packers' fault. Last week it was the week before it was the Bears and their coach complaining because, well, they should have been called for a penalty for how they lined up on the block kick, and now this week it's Shanahan. So yeah, it's ridiculous. It to me, and I know this is going to show bias because of Packer fandom and whatever, but it totally just sounds like sour grapes. You're trying to blame everything but your ineptitude for why you lost, or why this situation happened, or why this went this way. You put it perfectly. There is a possibility, and I don't know if I'm just making this up or if I read this or if I heard this. I swear LaFleur said that there was a possibility that they could have been called for 12 men, but the refs like allow, or yeah, something like, not that they were going to get called for 12 men, but they should have allowed the substitution on the first one for some reason, but the refs didn't call it. So, but the next one was totally on them. That had nothing to do with us. They had plenty of time that next time. And like I said, I don't know if that's an actual thing or if it was just something I read or whatever, but yeah, Shanahan, shut up. I mean, really, shut the fuck up. And Eberflus, shut the fuck up. You bitch ass coaches.
That's going to do it for us tonight, or today. I hope you're hearing this before the game, and hopefully we'll have good news for you. Good reviews coming this weekend for the Packers, and hopefully they're another step closer to double-digit wins on the season. Got to keep the ball rolling because the Lions get the Bears on Thanksgiving, so they'll probably already be at, what is that, 11 wins by the time the Packers kick off. So got to keep pace. You got to keep winning to make next week's game matter. Like, that's why, like, I don't believe that this is a trap game or anything like that, because it would be a trap game if you were up on the Lions, but the fact that you're two behind them, there are no trap games because you got to just keep winning. Because, like I said, they've got voodoo black. Them and the Vikings have voodoo black magic that's just not letting them lose games. So, got to keep the pedal to the metal and just keep racking these things up. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Before we do all of our reads, we want to just wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. We hope that that your prep is going well. Hopefully you're listening to this as you're prepping for meals. Hopefully, either you're prepping or you've already done your prep and you've got this on to take you into kickoff. Either way, hope that the holiday has gone really well for all of you. Hope the food tasted good. Turkey's not dry like Christmas vacation. But please check out the website, ohanapackers.org. Blog posts are going up. merch. Check out the merch, please. We have our drives going on right now, and hopefully we bag some Dolphins and Joe can come up with something funny from this game that we can put on a shirt. That's the hope. That's why we want the Packers to play well, so that Joe can put it on a shirt and support the chat. Have you guys support the channel? That's the pipe dream. Follow us on our social media so that you can get updates on our new podcast episodes, article posts, new merch ideas will come out there. So on Twitter at Ohana_Packers, Instagram at Ohana Packers Edition, Facebook, just search Ohana Packers Edition, and Blue Sky, we are still finalizing that. So it's just me and Joe that you got to be looking for, because we will post we will skeet updates on Blue Sky through our individual accounts for now. Please follow the podcast in your favorite podcasting apps. Please give us a like and a subscribe if you're enjoying what you're hearing. And positive or negative comments, please give them all to us. We want to hear everything from you guys to make sure that you're satisfied with what you're listening to. The Packers look to get their 9th win of the season and keep pace. And, it's the holiday. The holiday season is starting. Come on, sports gods, start giving us some early Christmas presents. Give us some gifts. Let the Packers have stubbed our toe against the Vikings and Lions. Let them stub several toes over the next few weeks, including against the Packers. That would be rather enjoyable. But that's Iowa Joe. I'm Mike. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Go Pack, go, and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for OPE. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for OU. Know who wanna go.